The dining room looked the way my mother liked it to look when she wanted to prove something, to neighbors, to relatives, maybe to herself. The heavy oak table was polished until it reflected the chandelier's soft yellow light. The good plates were out, the ones with gold rims we weren't allowed to touch on normal days. Even the air felt staged, thick with the smell of roast chicken, rosemary, and forced cheer. Dad cleared his throat and stood up, holding his glass high. The clink of crystal against crystal rang out like a command. "All right, everyone," he said, smiling in that broad, confident way he always used when he wanted to be admired. His eyes landed on my younger brother, Evan, sitting across from me. "Tonight, we celebrate." Evan straightened, already grinning. He was 21, still living at home, still sleeping late, still finding himself. Dad loved that phrase. He used it like an excuse. "Congrats," Dad continued, pride swelling in his voice. "Here's your car, son." Mom clapped immediately, her face lighting up as if this moment had been rehearsed in her head for weeks. Dad slid a small black box across the table. Evan opened it, and the keys gleamed inside. Brand new. Outside, parked neatly in the driveway, waited a shiny sedan I hadn't been told about. Evan laughed, loud and careless. "No way. You're serious?" "Of course I am," Dad said. "You deserve it." Something tightened in my chest, but I forced a smile. I told myself not to ruin the moment. I'd learned that lesson early, my feelings were always an inconvenience. Then Dad's gaze shifted to me. The warmth drained from his face as if someone had flipped a switch. He didn't raise his glass this time. Instead, he set it down with a dull thud and said, "Rent's due. $900 by Sunday." The room went silent. I blinked, sure I'd misheard him. "What?" "You're an adult now," he added, tone sharp, final. "If you want to live here, you pay." I was 19. I worked evenings after classes, weekends when I could. I already paid rent, quietly, on time, every month. I bought my own groceries. My own books. My own clothes. My fork trembled in my hand. I looked from Dad to Mom, hoping, stupidly, for backup. She avoided my eyes, suddenly very interested in folding her napkin. Evan stared at his keys, spinning them between his fingers like they were the only thing in the room. "Why?" I asked, my voice thinner than I wanted. "Did I pay, while he gets rewarded?" Dad didn't pause. He didn't soften his voice. He didn't even look conflicted. "Because he's worth it." The words landed heavy and sharp, slicing straight through me. Not "we're proud of him." Not "you'll understand someday." Just that. Because he's worth it. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. No one spoke. The roast chicken cooled. The celebration continued without me. And in that moment, sitting at a table that had never truly been mine, I understood something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't about money. It never had been. I didn't sleep that night. The house settled into its usual creaks and sighs, the ticking clock in the hallway, the low hum of the refrigerator, the faint sound of Evan laughing into his phone behind his closed door. Every noise felt louder, sharper, like the house itself was reminding me that I was still there, unwanted, uncelebrated. Because he's worth it. Dad's words replayed in my head on a cruel loop. Not shouted. Not angry. Just certain. As if my value had been weighed long ago and quietly dismissed. I stared at the ceiling, tracing old cracks I'd memorized as a child. I thought about the first job I got at 16, folding clothes at a retail store so I could buy my own school supplies. I remembered Mom telling me it would build character, while Evan got new sneakers every semester because he needed confidence. I remembered the scholarship letter that arrived my senior year. Full tuition. I'd run into the kitchen waving it, heart pounding, ready to be seen. Dad had glanced up from his phone and said, "Good. That saves us money." Then he went back to scrolling. When Evan failed 2 classes his freshman year, Dad took him out for steak to cheer him up. Because he's worth it. The phrase burrowed deeper, twisting every memory into something bitter. It wasn't that they didn't love me, I'd made peace with that lie years ago. It was that they expected me to give without ever asking for anything back. To pay, to sacrifice, to stay quiet. By morning, the decision had already been made. I packed slowly, deliberately. One suitcase. No drama. I folded my clothes neatly, choosing only what I needed. Important documents went into a folder: birth certificate, social security card, college paperwork. Things that proved I existed on my own terms. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My eyes were tired, but there was something else there too: resolve, maybe. Or relief. I paused at Evan's door. For a moment, I considered knocking, explaining, warning him. But what would I say? That the safety net he'd never noticed was about to disappear? He wouldn't understand. Not yet. In the kitchen, I took out a pen and a scrap of paper. My hand shook as I wrote, not because I was unsure, but because part of me was finally grieving the family I'd kept hoping for. I left the note on the fridge, held in place by a magnet shaped like a smiling sun, one of Mom's. Then I picked up my bag, slipped on my jacket, and stood by the door. No one stopped me. No one even noticed. As I stepped outside, the cool air hit my face, and for the first time in years, my chest felt light enough to breathe. Dad said he was worth it. Now they were about to learn what I was worth, by losing me. The house didn't explode the moment I left the way I half expected it to. There was no dramatic chase down the driveway, no shouted apologies, no sudden realization that they were about to lose something they could never replace. The front door closed behind me with a soft, almost polite click, as if the house itself had learned how to dismiss me quietly. I imagined them finding the note hours later. Mom would open the fridge to start dinner, already stressed, already annoyed. Her eyes would skim past the milk and leftovers, then pause. The paper would catch her attention, not because of what it said, but because it was mine. My handwriting. Careful. Controlled. She'd read it once, then again. I've paid enough to earn respect I never received. Don't look for me. I'm done paying to be invisible. Her first reaction wouldn't be guilt. It would be fear. Fear of what people would say. Fear of inconvenience. Fear of change. She would call my name down the hallway, expecting me to answer like I always did. Nothing. That's when the panic would start. Dad would come home later, loosen his tie, open the fridge for a beer, and freeze. I could almost see his jaw tightening as he read the note, the way his pride would flare into anger. She's being dramatic, he'd say. But then he'd check my room. Empty closet. Bare desk. No charger plugged in. No suitcase under the bed. That's when anger would turn into calculation. Evan would wander in, keys jangling, asking what was for dinner. He'd read the note last, confusion written all over his face. He'd laugh at first, because things always worked out for him. Then the calls would start. My phone buzzed while I sat on the edge of a borrowed bed in my friend's apartment. One missed call. Then another. Then 5. Mom's name filled the screen. I didn't answer. Texts followed, frantic and scattered. Where are you? This isn't funny. Come home right now. Then Evan. Did you really leave? Dad's mad. You can't just disappear. I turned the phone face down and let it vibrate itself silent. Later that night, Dad finally called. I let it go to voicemail. You think this is how adults act? His voice snapped through the speaker. You owe us rent. You don't get to run away. I almost laughed. Almost. By morning, the tone shifted. Mom's messages softened, words dripping with panic. Your brother needs help. We can talk about this. That's when I checked my bank account. The joint account Dad insisted on, for family emergencies, was still linked to my paycheck. The same account that quietly covered groceries, utilities, and expenses I never questioned. I logged in. I closed it. I moved every cent that was mine. Clean. Legal. Final. As the confirmation email arrived, my phone lit up again. This time, I didn't feel small. I felt free. The phone started ringing before sunrise. At first, I thought it was my alarm. The vibration rattled against the nightstand in my tiny rented room, the screen lighting up the dark like a warning flare. I silenced it without looking and rolled onto my side, my heart already racing. But a minute later, it rang again. And again. By the fourth call, I checked the screen. Dad. Then Mom. Then Evan. Every number they had. Every way they could reach me. I sat up slowly, letting the phone buzz itself quiet, and stared at the wall. For the first time since I'd left, I wasn't running on adrenaline. I was calm. The kind of calm that comes after a storm when you finally see what's been washed away. Messages stacked up fast. Dad's voicemails were clipped, sharp, furious. Your account's frozen. Bills didn't go through. You had no right. Mom's were frantic, her voice cracking. The mortgage bounced. Evan's car insurance is overdue. Please call me. Evan's texts were different, confused, almost scared. My card declined. Dad says you closed the account. What did you do? I listened to them all without flinching. Because now I understood the truth they'd never meant to tell me. I hadn't been a daughter. I'd been a backup plan. A silent solution. The one who paid while they pretended everything was fine. I finally answered when Dad called again. What did you do? He demanded, skipping any greeting. I stopped paying for a family that never included me, I said evenly. He scoffed. That money was for the household. No, I replied. It was my paycheck. You just got used to spending it. There was a pause. A long one. Then his voice dropped. Your brother's car payment didn't go through. I smiled, not out of cruelty, but clarity. You said he was worth it, I reminded him softly. So pay for it. Mom grabbed the phone. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow. We're under so much stress, she cried. Can't you help just this once? Just once. The phrase stung more than all the rest. I've been helping my whole life, I said. This is me stopping. Evan texted again while we spoke. I didn't know you paid for everything. I typed back slowly. Now you do. That afternoon, I got an email notification that made my hands shake, not with fear, but with satisfaction. The college trust fund Dad always claimed wasn't real had been flagged for unauthorized withdrawals. My grandmother had set it up in my name alone. His access had depended on my silence. I filed one form. The money was transferred. Protected. When Dad called again, his voice was different. Smaller. They're asking questions, he said. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I answered quietly. I did. The phone finally stopped ringing by evening. I sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. My life was smaller now. Harder. But it was honest. They lost their safety net. I gained my self-respect. And that was the sweetest sound of silence I'd ever known.